I was reading a book by Rabbi Ari Khan.
Can I say something before you start?
Yeah.
We were talking about Lashon Hora earlier, and we said that that it's brought down in the Talmud that to even listen to Lashon Hora it's an avera. You're not allowed to do it. There's another thing that's not allowed to be done in Lashon Hora. You shouldn't mention a person's name when you know that there's somebody else who doesn't respect that person's name.
Right.
And if you mention that person's name,
right,
you're going to cause somebody else to think really bad thoughts.
Right.
Because like if there's a bunch of people that don't like Luke,
right,
like all the women on my Facebook,
right,
they can't stand you, right? And I say, oh, Levi this, oh, Levi that, it's just going to piss them off,
right? Because
they don't want to hear about you and your fecal matter and you and your genitals and you and all this. They don't want to hear about it, right?
Right.
So I'm not going to mention Levi in their presence,
right? Because
it's like. So that's something you want to focus on, is that you don't want to mention people that you know are going to drive me crazy just hearing their names. People like Dennis Prager, right? You know that I think the guy spews a lot of heresy. It's better not to quote him. All right.
That doesn't apply to a show. That applies to interpersonal relationships.
But I'm right here.
It doesn't matter. You're not going to change like a show and like stop citing a source, or I'm not going to stop talking about what's important to me just because it upsets you. In interpersonal relationships, like I'll give you an example.
Okay.
You're not supposed to remind someone
of their past,
of their being a convert, or their past.
Right.
Like that's. But when it comes to journalism, I remember I noted like half a dozen well-known Orthodox rabbis who were converts, and one of them threatened to take me to a Beit Din. He wanted it off, and he got very angry.
I don't blame him.
And he went after me, and I said, Talmud is talking about, well, you don't remind a convert of being a convert. It's talking about interpersonal relationships. It's not talking about journalism. For instance, like, this is something
that's wrong, Levi. You're wrong on that.
Well, there are various Orthodox rabbis who would agree with you and various who would disagree with you. But it's in the community's interest. They need to know, or it's useful to know which Orthodox rabbis are converts, because there are certain positions in a community that a convert should not take. And I'm not at all sure that converts should become rabbis. First of all, I think that's a problematic area. Converts should not become leaders in the Jewish community.
Well, we've had this discussion.
And they should not serve on a Beit Din for conversion.
I believe they cannot.
Right, they cannot. So... But
it's nobody's business to blurt out that somebody is a convert. There's no. That's completely wrong. That goes neged halacha. The idea that the convert should be able to keep their identity hidden. They shouldn't take a job sitting on a base stand, right? Like, you're right about that.
There are all sorts of positions that they should take.
Right, but that should be handled privately. It's not for public consumption. The people who need to know that are the other Rabbeim or whatever, who would make the decision to put the guy on a base stand or whatever. They know, and that's fine. But they would also have the wisdom to keep it quiet. Because they know that, right? You blurting it out so every Tom, Dick, or Harry walking down the street needs to know. It's not a need to know. It's a need not to know. I should be able to feel that if I'm a convert, I don't need to worry that it's going to be spilled out over the internet. Just because you don't respect the fact of your privacy doesn't mean that you can trample and force other people to...
Well, if you want to be private, then become a rabbi and take public positions. Like, take a very prominent public job as a convert to Orthodox Judaism. You can't expect that someone's not going to note when they're writing about you that you're a convert. Like, if you want to keep it, like, there are all sorts of people who for various good reasons want to keep their past quiet. So don't like grab for positions where you're going to get a maximum of attention and news media attention that people write about you. Don't go on TV.
Why not?
Don't go on the radio if
you
don't want to be discussed. You can't like, oh, look at me. I'm doing these things on TV and on the radio, and I'm publishing in the newspaper and magazine, publishing books, but don't ever talk about me. It doesn't work both ways. If you want to be a public person, then people deserve to be able to know about you, for instance, whether you're a convert or not.
No, I completely disagree with that. I completely disagree with that. If I were a convert, I have the right to go on TV. I have the right to
publish books and
publish books,
newspapers, go on the radio,
go on doing whatever, and it's nobody's business what my life was before I became a convert. It's not nobody's business the fact that I am a convert. That's nobody's business. And there's a respect for privacy. We don't need to say Lashon Hora because it's Lashon Hora to say that a so-and-so is a convert. Those words, Joe is a convert, is something that we're not allowed to say according to the Torah. One of the 613 mitzvahs includes you're never allowed to say the following sentence, so-and-so is a convert. I can say it here because
I'm fine with it.
You say it yourself.
Yeah, I'm fine with it.
Right? But if Levi said, I don't want everybody to know that, or he never even said anything about it, I can't introduce the concept. I can't say, Levi's a convert. I can't even go up to Levi and say, hey, can I talk about the fact that you're a convert? Because I can't remind him that he's a convert. But when Levi comes to me first and says, I'm going to be talking about I'm a convert, that drops the wall on that, and I'm allowed to discuss it, which is very rare for me, because one of the few things you'll never hear out of my mouth is so-and-so is a convert, so-and-so is a Baal Tshuva. I stay away from that, because it's Lashon Hora. According to the Chafetz Chaim, who who's the expert on Lashon Hora, you're never allowed to say these things. I wrote a note about this on Facebook. You're never allowed to say, are you BT? Or so-and-so is a BT. That's a Baal Tshuva Yeshiva. Those are a bunch of Baal Tshuvas. This guy's a Baal Tshuva. She's a Baal Tshuva. You're not allowed to say those things. There's no heter in the world to say those things. You're not allowed to say, so-and-so's a convert. I think so-and-so's a convert. Are you a convert? Are you a BT? You're not allowed to say these things. You're not allowed to say these things. Torah forbids it, okay? It's all Lashon Hora. You're not allowed to say those things.
Then how come the Talmud often says so-and-so is a convert?
Because that Rav gave the permission on it. Like Reish Lakish. Reish Lakish was he a convert or Baal Tshuva?
I'm not sure. He was a robber and then he became religious.
Yeah, he was a Baal Tshuva, and Rabbi Akiva was
right.
a ger, right? Because they've authorized that. So it's like, Levi. It's the same kind of thing. Levi's authorized it. We're allowed to say it. But we don't know who else, because then not everybody authorizes it. You should be allowed to go into the public domain and teach Torah or whatever, and not fear that Lashon Hora is going to be said about you because nobody else is going to respect your privacy. God says no, that is not good. The Torah wants to give everyone respect and a layer of privacy, and there's things that you are not entitled to know. There's things you're not entitled to know, and that's it. I know it's a concept that America isn't used to. They think, we're entitled to know everything. I need to know, we need to know. It's the people's rights to know. That's not a Torah concept. Torah has an idea that there's certain things you're not allowed to know. You're not allowed to know if this guy, your neighbor, is a Baal Tshuva, or a ger, or a lifer. You don't. That's not your fucking business. You get it through your thick head. You're not allowed to know. And deal with it.